Have you heard the Gossip
Whoa!
Hashgraph?
No, I haven't, but Gossip Guy has.
World Tour comes to an end. Hashgraph hosts the big event. Projects on the move. And as always, some community updates. So, with all that said, let's get started. What is he talking about? And who am I? That's a secret you obviously know. You know you like me. Hashgraph, Hashgraph. Hello everyone, and welcome to another weekly gossip in the world powered by Hashgraph. I'm your host, the Gossip Guy, and it looks like I have some good updates for you this week. But before we get started, I need to take care of something really quick. Much better. At this point, the Hedera Hashgraph team has completed their global tour. As a recap, the team visited a number of locations in East Asia, Middle East, and Europe. But before things wrapped up, Berlin, Germany was the final stop. Thanks to a recording that was posted on YouTube by Hashgraph ambassador Arvindras of the Berlin presentation, we learned of some new gossip in regards to the soon-to-be-launched Hedera Hashgraph platform that was presented by co-founder and CEO Mance and president Tom Trowbridge. So with that said, here are a few things that stood out to me from the presentation. First up, May 15th or around mid-May, the Hedera Hashgraph platform is set to be feature completed. Basically, this means that the cryptocurrency, file storage, and Solidity smart contract functionality will be fully operational. Next, at the end of May, some of the early projects that have been announced within the ecosystem will gain access to the network in order to start developing their dApps on top of Hedera Hashgraph. And finally, there's currently 15 Hedera Hashgraph council members currently running nodes across 4 different continents. And we also learned during the presentation that 2 of those council members are based in Germany. Also during the presentation, Mance shed some light onto the previously noted performance results. First, as we understood it from Mance, there were originally some bottlenecks noted with the consensus algorithm. However, after working with one of the largest GPU manufacturers, a script was written that was able to achieve 1 million digital signature verifications per second. Second, we also learned that the original performance tests were intended to be conducted on 1 gigabit's worth of bandwidth. However, due to limitations on the AWS servers, mainly due to some security reasons, the performance results were actually conducted on 100 gigabits of bandwidth, obviously less than what they were originally intended to be tested on. Thus, between the new solution for digital signature verifications and the greater bandwidth speeds, the performance results could be greater than the 250,000 transactions per second with under 3 seconds of latency on 1 shard that have been outlined in the current release of the Hedera Hashgraph whitepaper. Also, this is likely to improve the timing between exchanging transactions between one account to another. I only point this out as I perceive this to be relatively good news, as these had been some critique points pointed out by some developers from other well-known public networks. It looks like we should be expecting some further official announcements in regards to the updated performance results in the coming weeks. In addition to the main stops in the global tour, some of the Hedera Hashgraph team members made some other stops in Europe. This included meetups hosted by technical lead Paul Madsen and lead developer advocate for Europe, Tim Michael. One meetup that stood out to me was in Frankfurt, Germany, hosted at the Frankfurt School of Finance and Management, where one of the professors made some amusing comments regarding the current state of forking amongst some of the popular blockchains. There was also an audio recording of the Frankfurt event, so you can check it out for yourself. And finally, backtracking to Paris, one of the Hashgraph ambassadors, Guillermo Blanco, has recently put together a e-learning course that he had compiled at the original meetup event. This is pretty interesting, as this is one of the first courses that we've seen in respects to becoming more familiar to Hedera Hashgraph. That said, I'm leaving a link to this course, including the videos that we just covered and some of the highlights from the European tour, in the description down below. Next up, fresh from their global tour, the Hedera Hashgraph team was out in Los Angeles, California at the Crypto Invest Conference, where they were one of the lead hosts and sponsors of the event. I personally didn't go to the event. However, thanks to the Hedera Hashgraph team, I was able to score some videos from their production partners that I thought to share with you. If you're not familiar, the Crypto Invest Summit is a leading, highly curated, high impact, and informative conference that features some of the leading innovators and thought leaders within the blockchain and crypto ecosystems. The list of speakers was pretty impressive, including prominent VC and crypto investor Tim Draper from DFJ Venture Capital. Also in attendance were several team members from well-known projects such as Augur and Tezos. Hedera Hashgraph CEO and co-founder Mance opened up the event with a keynote speech titled "When a DLT is secure, fair, and fast, what will you build?", which was a walkthrough of the current landscape for distributed ledger technologies and an overview of the proposed Hedera Hashgraph public network and its plans to address some of the several emerging topics within the DLT space. I understood that this presentation was similar to what was covered as part of Hedera Hashgraph's global tour. However, if you want to check it out in full, I've left a link to the live stream down below. Now, this event wouldn't have been complete without some gossip coming from Hashgraph, and we were able to find out more gossip in regards to the highly anticipated public ledger via an interview that Mance did with YouTube channel Bits Online. I highly recommend that you go check out this video. However, here are some key points of gossip that stood out to me from this interview. Half of the Hedera Hashgraph membership is fully committed and will be finalized in the summer of 2018. Mance stated that the rationale for choosing larger enterprises to compose the council is contributed by their ability to host larger scale nodes and, more importantly, lack of economic conflicts of interest in order to do right to the network. Basically, by selecting larger market leading enterprises, the profits awarded by being a council member are anticipated to be immaterial to their overall financial performance, which will allow them to better focus on the network's continuity. Also, Mance indicated that a traditional retail-focused ICO is not anticipated. Let me repeat myself, Hedera Hashgraph is not expecting a traditional ICO. The main drivers for this, as Mance stated, is due to the current regulatory environment within the US that currently doesn't look favorably to large-scale public token offerings. Unfortunately, due to this, any token offering will be done to institutional and accredited investor round, with some developers receiving tokens as compensation for their contributions. And finally, the complete Hedera Hashgraph network is expected to gradually be rolled out over the remaining course of this year, with version 1.0 of the network to be fully launched towards the end of 2018. Like I said before, be sure to check out this video. Now, I understand that some of the information covered may come as a disappointment to some of you in the audience. However, it certainly provides clarity and answers to several of the questions that have been emerging from the community. One has to appreciate the thoughtful and methodical approach that Hedera Hashgraph is taking in respect to their public launch, as it will hopefully provide long-term stability to the network. And finally, before we move on, Hedera Hashgraph was joined at the conference by 2 other projects that have been announced within the Hashgraph ecosystem. This included Artbit, a recognition platform for artists, whose co-founder Matt Sorum and former Guns N' Roses drummer attended a panel session in respects to the entertainment business using the blockchain. And there was also a fireside chat with Gabe Leedon, the CEO from Machine Zone, that covered their plans to launch Satori and the LIT token using Hashgraph. And speaking about Lit by Satori, this brings me to the next portion of this episode regarding some of the emerging projects within the Hashgraph ecosystem. If you're not familiar with it already, the Satori platform is a decentralized AI mesh network that features live data processing and customizable AI technology while leveraging Hashgraph. The Satori platform will also be complemented by the LIT token, which was featured at the Hedera Hashgraph launch event back in March. Personally, this is one of the projects that I'm most excited about given the level of innovation that is going into the Satori platform. However, we have even more reason to be excited as Satori recently released their completed white paper laying out the technical details of the platform and their token offering. Now, I didn't get the chance to go into too much detail regarding the Satori whitepaper. However, I'm leaving a link down below where you can go and request a version for yourself. However, one thing that had stood out to me in review of the paper is the fact that Satori will be using the private permissioned version of Hashgraph in order to power their network. And speaking of the private versions of Hashgraph, CULedger was back in the news again, but this time with a new update. For those that don't know, CULedger is a consortium of credit unions within the United States currently developing distributed ledger solutions for the benefit of their members. CULedger was also one of the first projects to be using Hashgraph within the private permissioned environments. However, this past week, CULedger also announced their plans to leverage the Hedera Hashgraph public ledger in order to build out a platform for cross-border payments. According to the press release, the intentions to use Hedera Hashgraph is primarily due to the lower costs and the automated benefits over the smart contracts that can be built on the platform. I found this announcement to be particularly interesting as CULedger is continuing to leverage the private version of Hashgraph while also developing a separate application on the public network. I guess they're looking to achieve the best of both worlds. And now on to some community news. At this point, the Hedera Hashgraph Telegram channel has reached over 32,000 members. However, there appears to be a common theme or question that is repeating itself within the chat channel. As I covered before, we learned from Mance that Hedera Hashgraph is not pursuing a traditional ICO. This is mainly due to the current regulatory environment in the United States that's currently prohibiting such activities. It actually turns out that some of these points are included within the pinned messages within the chat channel. Thus, if you're a new member or an existing member of the channel, be sure to check those out. However, in spite of these news and updates, this hasn't prevented opportunistic scammers from taking victim of some of the community members. As we've covered several times before on this channel, do not send your money to anyone offering or marketing you opportunities to invest in Hashgraph. As the Hedera Hashgraph team has said countless times before, they will not be doing so through Telegram. Also, it should be noted that the Hedera Hashgraph team is not supporting and is strictly discouraging investment pools. There is a whole host of issues that investment pools present to the project overall, and is why they're not being supported. There's already been reported instances of investment pools being blocked and banned from participating in any presale. Thus, any pool opportunities should be ignored or treated with the utmost caution. There's a good chance that the pool may be involved with this scam, so be on the alert. Alrighty, so with that out of the way, and before we conclude this episode, I wanted to update you on some upcoming Hashgraph related meetups, particularly 2 meetups that I will personally be in attendance. First up, it will be a meetup on May 14th in New York City that will be hosted by Hedera Hashgraph and Carbon. And May 24th, a Hashgraph meetup in Salt Lake City, Utah that will be held at the Overstock.com office. So hopefully I'll get a chance to connect with some of you from the community at both of these events. And lastly, before we wrap things up, myself and the Hedera Hashgraph team are attempting to host a meetup on June 6 in Tallinn, Estonia. Thus, if there's anyone watching this from Estonia and is interested in Hashgraph, I could really use your help. Please feel free to reach out to me in order to discuss further details. So that's it. That's all the gossip that I have for you this week. I hope you found this video to be helpful and informational. And if so, be sure to leave a like or let me know what your thoughts and reactions are in the comment section down below. Also, I happen to have some news and developments coming from me personally, the Gossip Guy, that I hope to be unveiling over the next couple weeks. So make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already in order to stay posted on further gossip coming from the world being powered by Hashgraph. This is the Gossip Guy signing out. Thanks for watching.